Hey there, friends. This is May 25th, I believe, Monday, 2019. 27th. This is May 27th. Sorry about that. And what I want to talk about here is first, let me thank Glenn Stockton for finding the 1/8 inch dowels that I needed to repair this jitterbug. He repaired it for me. It got stepped on at a meeting. We had a lot of people here. I made a YouTube about it, and I was probably the one who stomped on it, snapped a couple dowels. All the Bucky people, Synergetics teachers, tend to pull this out at some point or another. As you know, I'm really into Synergetics as an interesting philosophy that somewhat got left by the wayside in the 20th century, and I've been working to keep it on the front burner, or at least not that far back on the back burner, like bring it forward a little bit, nudge it a little bit forward. And I think there are reasons it hasn't been the breakthrough Bucky hoped, partly because of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about where I think the bridge was never finished, or it's kind of like a Gaudi thing. It's like he left a legacy. He saw where things were going, but it would take others to finish that job, and I don't think every aspect of it has been worked on or finished, or if it's ever going to go anywhere. Could have one of those dead freeway bridges, a ramp and off ramp that just doesn't go anywhere. I can't see the future on that necessarily. What I'm talking about is in particular Planck's constant. Like Fuller thought and hoped that this new way of doing tetrahedral accounting, which I think I have done a good job of explaining, partly by taking it back to the triangular case and putting it all in quadre coordinates and doing a lot of computation to show how we can consistently implement this idea, and then how that in turn informs how he uses the meme for D, which became a meme. We call those memes now in the 1900s, even in the 1800s, but fourth dimension. Now he has a different way of using that meme, but I think it's internally consistent, and if you're into philosophy, that's what you look for, internal consistency, not that everything gears together globally. We don't think that. We have namespaces, right? So is Synergetics internally consistent? I think I've shown where it's in a better shape than we might have thought. But when it comes to Planck's constant, see, what Fuller really hoped is that tetrahedral units and thinking in terms of getting sort of injecting new life and strength into what I'll call Platonic math, conceptual geometry. The polyhedrons are not as cumbersome to work with. Everything seems easier now that we've made this transition to the tetrahedron, and therefore he's thinking we can go back and revisit some physics like Planck's unit, whatever Planck's constant refers to, that little smallest possible amount of energy. Let's say, I know it's a unit of action, and I multiply by frequency and you get energy somehow. E equals hf or h bar f. I know a little Newtonian physics, Einstein physics, different kinds of physics, and so did he, and he's hoping that the tetrahedron, he can insert it right in the neighborhood of Planck's constant, like that smallest increment of whatever. We should make that a tetrahedron and then go with his more Platonic approach where the polyhedra suddenly snap into view. And so he has things about that. Oh, by the way, I just discovered this site in Australia, Principles of Nature by W.A. Roberts in Canberra, and I'm trying to email the guy. I don't know if he's still alive because the copyrights are looking old, kind of like mine sometimes. But oh well, this looks interesting. He's got the triangular area units going, which is a big part of what I do as well. I was up till like 3 in the morning adding the area methods to the quadres. I don't know how relevant that's going to be to anybody, but works for me. So here we go on the Synergetics dictionary, the same idea, synergetics constant. He thinks somehow that's connecting directly to Planck's constant. Like now that we have this way to sort of tweak our units and get out of our 90-degree obsessions, move to the tetrahedron as our unit, somehow that's going to make waves in physics to where we can start accounting energy in another way, and somehow Planck's constant is going to come into it, and it's going to simplify it. So it's going to become one of those primitive unitary things. And he tries to show that by taking the volume of the VE, which is 20, and dividing by the cube, which stands for the XYZ, and the 6.6 goes away. You know, I don't know what to say about that, and I think Applewhite was the same way. He puts in his little note under here. RBF says it's very simple matter for him to work out the arithmetic and confirm the relationship, but as of this date, he has not yet done so. And this is 75. So Synergetics is still yet to be published. I can just imagine Applewhite like pestering Fuller to get something about Planck's constant, and we end up with this passage, 223.72. Check it out. I think that's the one anyway. Or 223.74. Check that out. And then it goes on to energy has shape and so on. Now that's, I think, valid enough if we just want to, we do think of energy as like the amount of energy in a battery, say, and then it trickles to where it's gone. It evens out the positive and negative. Thinking of energy as a volume amount, like I'm doing in this picture with joules ergs as a tetrahedron, right? And then as we feed energy to this smart house down here, which I've got in a dome, I'm showing how the internal 90-degree structures with the ladder and all that, big TV and so on the top, that's all fairly flimsy in construction because all the weather control is done by the outer dome, as we see here. I still haven't seen much experimentation with this. There's a lot. I mean, there's houses on the internet built inside domes, real ones, prototypes, stuff in Finland, stuff in Canada, whatever. But how about a bigger dome with more structures inside, things like that? Seems like if people want to be spending money and doing product placement and keeping people busy and running an economy, you know, we have a lot of people standing around who could experiment with this. And we just have to allocate some solar energy towards their upkeep, right? Towards people doing things. We need to fund movies with casts of thousands and millions. It's all about making movies from here on out for posterity. You make a movie in the sense of a documentary about what you're doing, what you're trying to do, what you're up to. It's documentation. It's a movie because that's how we take it in these days. That's how we learn. So if you're going to do like experimental prototype community stuff, a la the Disney vision for one, many of us have this vision. I recommend thinking in terms of making movies, which, you know, if you go to war with Iran, that's another movie, right? Everything is a movie. All right, so I don't know that this bridge to Planck's constant from tetrahedral accounting has ever been followed up on, and whether it's going to lead anywhere. That's one of those loose ends, I would put it. As far as what Fuller means by 4D, how the synergetics constant's used, what tetrahedral accounting looks like, all that kind of stuff, I feel that is secure. We've got that nailed. And I think of it as in the humanities, in philosophy. Like here's this kind of, if you want to get sort of alienate yourself from the standard common wisdom about stuff, that's why Bucky comes in useful. He pulls you out even of something so basic as your belief, quote unquote, in XYZ coordinates. That's the kind of thing that we're not really even trying to defend against, because by the time we're adults, we've been completely brainwashed in a good way, we'd say. We've got our basic competence in sort of linear algebra, as I'll call it, however far we go in that. And then here Quadrates comes along and Bucky Fuller and all these things, and they're like, hey, you can get some conceptual distance from this and even think about that stuff differently. And I think that's very important to jar someone out of their long-standing beliefs. It's if they can see the importance of that. It's not that you can do that to someone necessarily. It's more effective if they like say, gee, I want to shake things up. I want to see things in a new way. I think Fuller is really good for that. I really recommend it. On the other hand, I don't think that he's finished. They say Synergetics is incomplete, and I think it is in certain ways. Like, it obviously, if it doesn't have a future, another way to say something is incomplete is to say it has a future. Other people can contribute. And we've already seen with a lot of the stuff David Koski's come up with, for example, around the S module, the S factor, the STE module ratio, how that relates to the jitterbug, moving on the volumes, adding to the concentric hierarchy, as Fuller calls it, with a 7.5 volume rhombic trichondahedron, how that touches the same vertices as the volume 6 rhombic dodecahedron. Those were all sort of breakthroughs after Fuller and after Synergetics was published. So I'd say on a platonic level, it has continued to move forward. But as far as plugging into physics and in particular giving us new insights around Planck's constant, I haven't done anything about that. And so if there's low-hanging fruit or high-hanging fruit in that area, you're welcome to try to go in that direction if you think you have the tools. Otherwise, I'll assume that that's an unconnected circuit, unless I learn otherwise from someone else. But that doesn't end my project to say that there's no obvious bridge here, because I think the bridge to STEM is secure anyway through STEM, stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. I think that we do have those bridges strong. It's just not every lane on that bridge is operational, right? But we do have a lot of two-way traffic already. So that's all working out, but there's a lot more to think about, and I'm like a AA battery in this picture. I think it's kind of risky that I'm the guy with my AA intelligence and energy. Like, I'm just one guy, and what makes me nervous is there's enough good stuff here that I seem to be one of the only ones yakking about, and that concerns me because there's a lot here that is what I'm calling platonic or tautological, or it's just correct. I've got the math and all this, it's working fine. And Fuller had a great positive futurism as he wrapped his thinking around how to make things better for all humans. And I don't think we can afford to just let go of people like that. They're not that many. And to have one that gave us that many inventions, many practical ideas, to just turn our backs on that, I don't think is a good idea at all. So I'm committed to my agenda, and I don't necessarily have all the answers. I'm like Applewhite. I'm kind of a skeptic on this Planck's constant thing, and I'm not sure if these passages in the 200 section, which pissed people off, Applewhite used to say, that was like he was getting really dogmatic in the 200s. Kind of like, this is, he's polemic, Fuller. That's partly why he's got enemies, is to create a space in the sun for his own thinking. He did have to kind of clear a space and defend it. And so he is in attack mode, you could say, Fuller is. And I understand that that's dialectic. You're going to have that. You're going to have back and forth, acrimony even. I'm up for that. And I'm not going to defend everything that's there, because I can't say I understand everything. So, but I'm interested in the physics part a lot. I just waiting for other people to help me with that. All right, I think that's enough for today. We'll talk to you again soon.